Hi everyone and welcome to my Java interview preparation series. So in previous videos we talked about classes in Java and we already talked about fields. So today we're gonna keep on talking about Java classes and particularly about methods. So what is a method in Java? Method is a block of code, collection of statements grouped together, and you can think of a method as an action. So methods describe a behavior of an object, and thus method can be only defined and declared within a class or within an interface. Method cannot exist outside of a class. So if you heard about, if you think about a method as of a function, like in other programming languages, in Java, method can be only defined within a class. That's why it's called method. There are no like pure functions in Java. So methods in Java can have arguments or can have none, and then they can also return values or can return no values. So here is an example. We have a class employee with a private field salary, and this class employee has two methods. The one has name getSalary and the returning type double, and since it declares the returning type, it should have the return statement with the value. So in this case, we return the value of the salary. And the second method is a void, so it returns nothing. Its name is rateSalary by amount. It accepts an argument of a data type double, and within this method, we just increment the salary. This is my favorite method actually. And since it returns nothing, we do not need to use the return statement. So methods have a signature, and signature of a method is the way to identify it. So the signature method consists of method name and arguments, the argument list. Even if there are no arguments, you can consider this as an like non-arguments or like no arguments list. And important note, returning type is not considered as a part of the signature. So, for example, in this case, we have two methods. Both of them are called say hello, but these are two distinct methods for Java because they have different argument lists. For example, the first one accepts no arguments, the second one accepts string. So the signature of this method is say hello with no arguments, and the signature of this method is say hello with a string argument. It means these are two distinct methods. And when we try to call one without the arguments, this one will be called first, and when we put the string argument, this one will be called. Java will decide during the runtime, in the runtime, which method it should call based on the argument list, actually based on the signature of the method. But there is a corner case of this. Let's say we have um, two methods with the same signature but different returning type. Previously we said that methods, the returning type of a method is not considered as a part of the signature, so this will produce a compile error, an error during compile time. And we also talked about if a method doesn't return any value, it should be marked as void. But actually you can use optionally the return statement in the method at the end of the void method. For example, here you can put the return. It will have no effect, but it will just stop the execution of the method. But in some cases, you need to stop execution of the method based on some condition. For example, let's say we have a method print sum if positive, which accepts two arguments of integers, and we calculate the sum of those integers, and we print it. Actually, we should print it here if it's positive, but if it's negative, we would like to stop the execution of the method. So here we can use this return statement with no value, and it works just fine. It's not the best way to actually to perform this action, but just for the sake of this video, I wanted to show you this example. Arguments. The order of arguments, if they are declared in the method, the order matters. So let's say we have some method with two arguments, integer and string. And we should, when calling the method, we should pass the values for those arguments in the same order as in the signature of the method. So we cannot swap them. For example, in this case, first is integer argument and second is a string argument, so we should pass them in the same order. Variable amount of arguments. In some cases, we would like to have a function, we would like to have a method, and we do not always know the exact amount of the parameter we will call this method with. So for this case, for example, we can define the same method name but different signatures, like with different amount of um, arguments, but then our code expands if we, for example, expect a big amount of arguments. We'll have to define method for every amount of arguments, and this is not really good. This is a very bad code example. Solution for this problem is, for example, using an array. So we can use an array as argument and calculate the sum of the elements within this array, just looping within it, traversing it. It works fine because we have only one method now and we can use it with different amount of arguments. But for this case, we always need to create an object, an, an array. And this is not very convenient. So a better solution for this is using var args. So var args has similar syntax, but instead of but you put just the type data type of the var args and you put this literal, sorry, not the literal, this operator of var arg, three dots. And from Java perspective, these ints arguments will be considered and will be treated as an array. So it's pretty much the same code, but we can call it in really convenient way without declaring, without creating an array. And we can also call it just using empty argument list. It's also okay. Important note, var args can be used among other arguments, but it should be always as the last argument, it should be always at the end. So when you use logging, you'll often frequently see this kind of code. You have a string format message and a var arg of objects, so you cannot swap them and to have message um, at the end. This is not okay. This code won't compile. So let's move on to method access modifiers. So method access modifiers can be public, private, and protected. Same as with fields. Private, if a method marked with a private modifier, it's only accessible within the class. If it's public, it's accessible from everywhere. If it's protected, it's accessible only in the child class and within the class and within the child class. And here is an example of a class user, which has a public void method print user. And within this print user, we use a private method format. It's private, so it's private. It means we can use it within the class, and this is what we do. But when we create an instance of the class user, we can only call its public methods because these are the only methods available to us outside of the class. So next modifier is final. In case of the field, final marked the field whose value cannot be changed. In case of a method, it's a little bit different because final marks that method cannot be overridden. And I'll explain you. So being overridden means that a method, you can redefine the method, override the method in the child class if you inherit a particular class. So let's say we have a class parent with two methods. One is public void do something, and the second one is public void do something as parent, but it's final. So this method is specific just for this data type, and we want to prevent using it in the child, sorry, overriding it in the child. So for this purpose, we create a child class which extends the parent, so it inherits it, and Within the child class, we can actually override the method do something and do it the way the child class would do this, the child object would do this. But the final method is not available to us. We cannot override it. Though we can call it using the instance of a child class, but we cannot override the behavior. So this is important to know. Static. The same as with fields, static marks that the method can be accessed by the class. So the method is associated with the class rather than with the instance of the class. So in this case, I have this format, hello format util class with a public static method, and we can simply access this method without creating an instance just by referring the class name and the name of the method, the signature of the method. And the next modifier is abstract. Abstract methods have to be overridden in a non-abstract child class. More about abstract methods and classes about we'll talk in next videos, but for now this was it regarding methods. I hope you enjoyed the videos. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for the future updates. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.